Water is passing through solid clay. No timer set it. No pump moves it. No electricity runs it. The water inside that pot is moving directly to the roots of the plant beside it, responding in real time to exactly how much that plant needs. Not more, not less. This technology is not new. It is not experimental. It is 4,000 years old, documented in the agricultural records of ancient Persia, the Han Dynasty, and the pre-Columbian American Southwest, and in controlled trials at the University of California, Davis, it reduced water use by up to 70% compared to surface drip systems, while producing higher yields. One pot, no moving parts, no maintenance schedule, no water bill. We will cover everything: the physics, the construction, the exact burial depth, the plant spacing, and the yield numbers. But stay for one thing. There is a mechanism inside the relationship between the Olla and the plant root that no modern irrigation engineer has replicated. It does not involve a sensor. It does not involve a valve. It is the reason this system produces more food per liter of water than anything developed since. We will get there. Picture the Sonoran Desert in July. Ground temperature above 50 degrees Celsius. No rain for 11 weeks. A Tohono O'odham garden, maintained continuously for over 2,000 years using buried clay pots, producing squash, beans, and corn from soil that receives less than 300 millimeters of annual rainfall. The Tohono O'odham, people of the desert in their own language, were documented by Spanish missionaries in the 1690s using this system across what is now southern Arizona. The same ceramic technology had been independently developed on 3 separate continents before 2000 BCE. That kind of convergence does not happen by accident. It happens when something works so well that people who have never met arrive at the same answer. Modern drip irrigation was patented in 1969. Olla irrigation was working in the Sahara before the Roman Empire existed. The trial data tells us which one performs better. Here is exactly what that data shows, and how to build the system yourself. Item 1. The osmotic gradient. Most people assume Ollas work because they leak. They do not leak. They do something more precise. Osmotic gradient, the movement of water from an area of high water concentration to an area of lower water concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. In the case of an Olla, the unglazed clay wall is that membrane, and the dry soil pressing against the outside is the area of lower concentration. When surrounding soil is dry, the gradient is steep. Water moves through the clay quickly. As the soil moistens, the gradient flattens. Water movement slows automatically. When the soil reaches field capacity, the point at which plant roots have access to all the moisture they can use, water movement through the clay wall effectively stops. This self-regulating mechanism is called passive deficit irrigation. The Olla delivers water precisely in response to soil moisture deficit, without any sensor, valve, or human decision. No timer ever built can match that precision. And the precision is only half of what makes this system different from everything designed after it. Item 2. The 4,000-year record. The term Olla comes from the Latin olla, meaning simply pot, but the technology predates Latin by 2,000 years. The earliest documented use comes from the Jiroft civilization of southeastern Iran, where ceramic irrigation vessels have been excavated from agricultural terraces carbon dated to 2000 BCE. The Han Dynasty in China documented subsurface clay pot irrigation in agricultural manuals as early as 200 BCE, calling the practice Guangai, meaning sealed watering. In North Africa, Berber agricultural communities used sealed clay ollas in the pre-Saharan region before 1000 BCE, as confirmed by excavations near Gardaia in Algeria, conducted in the 1990s. 3 continents, 3 separate civilizations. One answer: the convergence is not coincidence. It is evidence. And what modern science found when it tested this system against the best irrigation technology currently available is the part the drip irrigation industry would prefer you not read. Every modern irrigation system is built on the same assumption. that a human or a sensor or a timer can decide when a plant needs water better than the plant can communicate it. That assumption has never been true. It is simply the assumption that creates a product someone can sell you. The Olla operates on the opposite premise entirely, and the yields prove it. Item 3. The water comparison. The numbers from controlled trials are not close. A University of California Davis study comparing Olla irrigation to surface drip systems across tomato, pepper, and squash trials documented Olla systems using 50 to 70% less water to produce equivalent or greater yields, with the most significant differentials occurring during peak summer heat, when surface evaporation makes conventional systems least efficient. Evapotranspiration, the combined loss of water from soil surface evaporation and plant leaf transpiration, accounts for the majority of water waste in conventional irrigation. Because Olla water delivery occurs entirely below the soil surface, surface evaporation is eliminated completely. No water touches air until it is already inside a plant. A standard residential drip irrigation system for a 10 by 20-foot garden uses approximately 30 to 40 gallons per watering cycle. A properly designed Olla system for the same plot, 6 Ollas, each holding 2 liters, uses 12 liters per refill and may not require refilling for 3 to 5 days in moderate summer conditions. The water comparison is settled. But the way you build the vessel changes everything about how well that comparison holds, and most guides get the construction detail critically wrong. Item 4. DIY construction. A purchased Olla from a specialty supplier costs between $15 and $40 depending on size. A functionally identical vessel costs under $3 to build from materials available at any hardware or garden center and takes 8 minutes to assemble. The method: 2 unglazed terracotta pots of identical size, placed rim to rim. The drainage hole of one becomes the fill opening at the neck. The drainage hole of the other is sealed permanently. Seal the rim joint with waterproof exterior cork. Food-safe formulations are available and recommended for vegetable gardens. Apply a thin bead around the seam, press the rims together firmly, and allow 24 hours, cure time before burial. Seal the bottom drainage hole of the lower pot with the same cork. Leave the upper drainage hole open. This becomes the fill neck. One critical specification: the pot must be unglazed, fired at low temperature, below 1000 degrees Celsius. High-fire ceramics and any glazed surface seal the pores and eliminate the osmotic function entirely. The porosity you can see with the naked eye, that slight roughness, that matte surface, is the technology. Do not sand it, do not seal it, do not glaze it. Once you have the vessel right, where you place it changes the entire outcome. And most first-time Olla users bury theirs in exactly the wrong position. Mid-roll. Pin. We are getting closer, but the mechanism I told you to wait for is still ahead. It is not osmosis. It is something the plant does that no engineer has built a machine to replicate. The Amish knew it by observation. Desert farmers knew it for 4,000 years. It was documented in a University of California laboratory in 2003. We will get there. Item 5. Burial depth and placement. The standard guidance for Olla burial is below the root zone. That guidance is wrong for most vegetables, and it is the single most common reason people try Ollas and report disappointing results. The correct target is the active root zone, the soil layer between 4 and 10 inches below the surface, where feeder roots are densest for most annual vegetables. For tomatoes, peppers, and squash, bury to 6 to 8 inches depth, measured from the base of the Olla. For shallow-rooted crops, lettuce, spinach, herbs, 4 to 5 inches is the correct depth. The neck of the Olla must remain above the soil surface, 1 to 2 inches proud. This serves 2 functions. It allows refilling without disturbing the root zone, and it allows you to monitor water level without digging. A small flat stone placed over the neck opening eliminates evaporation from the top and prevents mosquito breeding in standing water. One Olla with a 2-liter capacity irrigates a 60-centimeter radius sphere of soil, meaning it services a circular bed approximately 1.2 meters in diameter. Plants placed at the edge of that radius receive the least moisture. Plants placed at 20 to 30 centimeters from the Olla neck receive the most. Spacing to that geometry changes everything about the yield numbers, which connects directly to what the root architecture trials found. Item 6. Root architecture response. When researchers at New Mexico State University excavated the root systems of Chile pepper plants grown with Olla irrigation versus surface drip irrigation in a 2007 comparative study, what they found in the Olla plots changed how they understood the relationship between water source and root development. The Olla irrigated plants had developed root systems that were 40% denser in the subsurface zone immediately surrounding the clay vessel, and extended 30% deeper into the soil profile than the drip-irrigated controls grown under identical conditions. Hydrotropic root growth, the tendency of roots to grow toward water sources, had directed the entire architecture of the plant's underground system toward the Olla, creating direct contact between root surface and clay wall across hundreds of individual root tips. This is not incidental. It is the foundation of the mechanism I told you to wait for. Because what happens at that direct contact point between root and clay is something no irrigation engineer has successfully replicated with pipe, valve, or sensor. And it explains every yield number in every trial. In the region that is now the Algerian Sahara, Berber communities maintained productive agriculture for over 1,000 years in terrain that receives less than 100 millimeters of annual rainfall. They did not solve the water problem with engineering. They solved it with clay, fired at the right temperature and buried at the right depth. The desert did not cooperate with them. They simply understood something about how plants and soil exchange water that the entire modern irrigation industry has never had a commercial reason to study seriously. Item 7. Neck management and seasonal care. The Olla requires almost no maintenance, but the 3 things it does require, if neglected, reduce its effectiveness significantly. Covering the neck, a flat stone, a terracotta saucer, or a wooden plug placed over the fill opening eliminates the one source of water loss in the system, surface evaporation from the open neck. Without a cover, a standard 2-liter Olla can lose up to 400 milliliters per day to evaporation in peak summer heat, eliminating a significant portion of the efficiency advantage. Algae management. In high sunlight environments, the interior of the Olla can develop algal growth over a season. At the end of the growing year, flush with a dilute solution of 1 part white vinegar to 10 parts water. Rinse completely before reburying. The acid concentration is sufficient to eliminate algae without damaging the clay pores. Winter storage. In climates with ground freeze, below -5 degrees Celsius, sustained, water inside the buried Olla will expand on freezing and can crack the vessel. Empty and lift Ollas before the first hard freeze. Store dry in a shed or garage. They are fragile only when frozen wet. Otherwise, a correctly fired terracotta Olla will outlast the gardener who buried it. The maintenance cycle takes less than 10 minutes annually, and what you get in return brings us to the final number, the one that justifies everything. Item 8. Documented yield data. The yield data from controlled Olla trials is consistent across 3 decades of research on 4 continents. What varies is the magnitude of the improvement, not its direction. In a 2011 trial published in Agricultural Water Management, zucchini grown with Olla irrigation in semi-arid conditions produced 31% greater yield by weight than drip-irrigated controls, while using 52% less water. The combined improvement, more food from less water, represents a productivity gain that no surface irrigation system has approached in peer-reviewed comparison. A 2016 trial from the International Center for Agricultural Research in the dry areas documented tomato yield improvements of 18 to 47% across Olla irrigated plots compared to both sprinkler and drip controls, with the largest improvements occurring in the hottest, driest conditions where conventional systems perform worst. The data is not marginal. In the conditions where food security matters most, drought, heat, water scarcity, the 4,000-year-old clay pot outperforms the modern engineered system in every metric that matters. Water used, yield produced, cost of installation, years of service. And none of those numbers capture what happens at the root level, which is what I told you to stay for. This is the part I told you to stay for. When a plant root grows into direct contact with the outer wall of an Olla, something happens that no modern irrigation engineer has built a system to replicate, because no modern system allows the plant to be in control. Transpiration pull, the hydraulic tension created inside a plant as water evaporates from its leaves, generates a negative pressure gradient that extends from the leaf surface all the way down through the stem into the roots and out through the root tips. On a hot afternoon, when a plant is transpiring at full rate, that tension can reach -15 bar, a suction force that pulls water through soil, through cell walls, and, when roots are in direct contact with an Olla wall, directly through the clay pores. The plant is not passively receiving water that the Olla leaks. The plant is actively drawing water through the Olla wall on demand, at exactly the rate its transpiration rate requires, at exactly the moment it requires it. When transpiration slows, at night in cooler weather, after rain, the pull decreases and water movement through the clay slows to match. When the plant experiences heat stress and transpiration accelerates, the pull increases and water delivery accelerates with it. This is a closed-loop biological feedback system that has been operating continuously for 4,000 years. The plant decides. The water responds. No timer, no sensor, no human decision point sits between the two. A Bluetooth-enabled irrigation controller programmed with soil moisture sensors attempts to approximate this feedback loop. It costs $180. It requires batteries, a Wi-Fi connection, and reprogramming each season. It approximates what the plant needs based on sensor data. An unglazed clay pot costs $3 to build, requires no power source, and does not approximate what the plant needs. It responds to what the plant is actually doing, in real time, below ground at the root level, with a precision that no electronic system has matched. This is why the yield numbers are what they are, not because the Olla delivers more water, because it delivers the right water, to the right depth, at the right moment, in the right quantity, controlled entirely by the organism that needs it. Think about that for a moment. We built drip systems, sprinkler timers, soil moisture sensors, an entire industry of hardware to decide, on behalf of the plant, when it is thirsty. At no point did we ask whether the plant was already communicating that information. At no point did we consider that burying a clay pot and letting the root find it might be the more intelligent system. The desert farmers knew. They demonstrated it for 4 millennia. We simply stopped looking. Second deep dive, your complete installation plan. Here is everything you need to install a functioning Olla system this weekend. Materials required: 2 unglazed terracotta pots per planting zone. 6-inch diameter is ideal for most vegetable gardens. Waterproof exterior cork, flat stones or terracotta saucers for neck covers. Total cost per Olla, $2 to $4. Step 1. Build the vessel. Apply a continuous bead of cork around the rim of the first pot. Press the second pot rim to rim. Hold 30 seconds. Seal the bottom drainage hole of the lower pot. Leave the upper drainage hole fully open. Allow 24 hours to cure before any contact with water or soil. Step 2. Select and prepare the burial site. Choose a location central to the planting zone the Olla will serve. A 1.2-meter diameter circle for a standard 2-liter vessel. Dig a hole 8 inches deep and wide enough to accept the Olla body without forcing. Loosen the soil at the base of the hole with a trowel. This improves initial contact between clay and surrounding soil. Step 3. Bury to correct depth. Lower the Olla into the hole with the neck up. The junction of neck and body should sit 1 to 2 inches above the soil surface. Backfill firmly around the clay body, pressing soil into contact with the clay wall on all sides. The quality of that soil to clay contact determines how quickly the osmotic gradient establishes. Do not leave air gaps. Step 4. Plant at the correct radius. Transplants placed 20 to 30 centimeters from the Olla neck will receive peak moisture and produce peak yield. Plants at 50 to 60 centimeters receive supplemental moisture, useful for drought-tolerant varieties that prefer drier conditions. Do not plant directly against the neck. Root intrusion into the fill opening will block refilling. Step 5. Fill, cover, and leave it. Fill the Olla through the neck to within 2 centimeters of the top. Place a flat stone over the opening. Do not check it daily. The system is designed to operate without monitoring. Refill when you can hear the water level is low by tapping the clay neck. A hollow sound means it needs water. A dull thud means it is still full. One installation, years of operation, nothing to program, nothing to replace, nothing to buy next spring. There is a particular kind of wisdom that gets dismissed not because it fails to work, but because it fails to generate revenue. The Olla is the most complete example of that category that agriculture has produced. It requires no annual purchase. It improves with age as the pores season and the surrounding root network matures. It operates on physics that have not changed since the first desert farmer buried a clay vessel and watched the plant beside it thrive without being watered again. We did not improve on this system. We replaced it with one that required more from us. More money, more attention, more dependence on supply chains, and called that progress. The clay has not changed. The physics has not changed. The root still knows exactly how to find water, and the Olla still knows exactly how to provide it. What changed is whether we trusted either of them enough to let them work. The next video covers the complete Amish soil building system, sheet composting, cover crops, and the one zero-cost nitrogen activator that cuts decomposition from 18 months to 6 weeks. Watch that one next. Subscribe if this is the kind of knowledge worth keeping.